Hi there, it's Rebecca, and you don't usually hear from me on these intros.
And it's Shannon, and you're probably sick of hearing from me on these intros. Jointly, we're the hosts of We're No Damn Experts, and we're so excited to be celebrating 100 episodes of the greatest damn podcast around. Of course, I haven't been around for all 100, but Rebecca has.
And in those 100 episodes, we've covered things from mermaids and mountains to bears and beer and a lot of things in between. And we have even more to cover about Montana's best damn town, Great Falls. And thank you to all of our listeners, especially those who've made it all the way with us from episode 0.
Yeah, not episode 1, episode 0.
Yeah, we did start with episode 0.
Now, to mark this milestone, we have a very special guest. We're very proud to call him a Great Falls resident.
So sit back and relax and enjoy the 100th episode of We're No Damn Experts. And be sure to listen until the very end for your chance to win a really unique and super cool prize package.
Best damn podcast, the best damn town. You wanna get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Tame. If you wanna go, we can take you there to Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls. I'm Rebecca Ingham.
And I'm Shannon Newth.
And we're No Damn Experts. We are, I'm a little bit nervous.
Starstruck.
Fangirly.
Yes.
For the first time in the history of our podcast.
No offense to all the other guests who have been here.
Well, maybe some of you should take offense, but this is our 100th episode. Well,
it's not my 100th. It's your 100th.
We're No Damn Experts 100th episode.
Yes.
And today on the podcast, we have the biggest celebrity we have ever had in the history of our podcast. And we've had Mrs. Montana on.
We did. Yeah. Mrs. Montana was here.
Our guest is a New York Times best-selling author.
Yes. For 2 different books.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not just
3
one
different
time.
books. 3 different books.
3 different books.
Mm-hmm.
He's friends with 1, maybe 2 of my favorite creative people, Eric Heidel and Sean Tatarka. Yes. You may not be friends with Sean, but you know him.
I'm friends with Sean. Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to just make that assumption. And the other biggest claim to fame, he's a freaking Great Falls resident.
He is. That's the best part.
Yes. And we get to have him on our podcast, Mr. Jamie Ford.
Wow.
Yay.
Thanks for having me. That was quite an introduction there.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, I worked on it all night, all morning. I even wrote notes.
Dreamed about it.
I'm like, how cool
do you introduce this man? Yeah.
that we get to finally have Jamie Ford in our presence and in our podcast studio.
Yes.
The funny thing is, across the street is our disc golf course.
Yes.
And I'm up there all the time. I was just up there yesterday, literally 24 hours ago. So I was just kind of looking down, waving.
So getting ready.
I've always been lurking just outside the studio.
Oh,
That's what
well,
I'm
I'm
saying.
glad you've stopped lurking and you've come on in. Yeah.
We've had Drew and Maggie on the podcast with us. Callie Jean told us today that she's intersected with your family a number of times.
And so creepily mentioned to him when he walked in the door that she's been in your house.
Yeah, that's
and
always
you didn't
comforting.
know that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. You were asleep and I was staring at you.
Smelled
I've
really
been in your
good.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just smell your clothing.
So maybe that's why he's been lurking and never coming in, because we're creepy like that.
Because there's weird people hanging around.
In fact, she's there now.
She
She left.
Mm-hmm. We closed the door. She's outside. Yeah.
So, funny enough, we talked with Chuck Fulcher a while back. He told us how he designed pools in California and ended up moving to Montana or back to Great Falls to take a job with Went. And Jamie surprises us before we go on air with the same story.
That's what brought me back too.
So I'm just going to have to say, Went is like a recruiter of talent.
Yes. Advertising agency in town. Yeah.
They bring a lot of people here. I mean, truly.
Well,
that's what brought me
they're a
here.
very long-standing company, 90 plus years.
Yeah,
in our community.
they began their journey in 1929, which is not the best year to start a business, but they pulled it off.
Hey,
Yeah,
it worked.
They're still here.
So in my mind, the story I had created about you is you were born here, you left, you went away, you came back, but that clearly is not
Not your journey.
That's a fictional story.
Yes.
that I've created. It's not true.
Yeah.
So we need to correct Rebecca's narrative in her brain.
Yeah, there's a more fictional story out there. I would keep getting email requests for biographical information from high school students, and so I made a fake bio and I put it on Tumblr.
Ooh.
And it was like I was a test tube baby, and I was
Oh my
born in
gosh.
Mali, and my first language is Urdu, and I was a bush pilot, and was in an all male review that toured Europe, and it's clearly fictitious, but some kids just copy paste and
Oh my
off they go.
gosh.
Yeah. But that's got to be fun to think
Yeah.
how
That
your
that
life
other
could have
version
been.
of you exists. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just giving,
And then you get
giving,
sad, like when you're home, and you're like, I'm not
Oh.
a bush pilot.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Oh, I wasn't in a Bolivian circus.
Yeah. Man.
Dang it.
The opportunities in another lifetime. The folklore of you lives on in these people, in these high schoolers' papers when they don't do their research.
Yeah, there was actually one, I did have one bad experience at a high school where some parents kind of were very angry at me. And they found that bio and thought it was real and posted it because in it says I got kicked out of a like a Catholic school in like India for turning a pieta into a pinata or something like that.
gosh.
And they literally posted like Jamie Ford vandalized a school when
Oh
and
my
like
God.
okay,
Why would we let this person come and interact with our children?
Yeah, they clearly missed something.
Wow. Didn't read between the lines.
You've had to have seen the progression of the world go from being able to be entertained to really trying to be offended by any opportunity they could.
Just the fact that you bring that up offends me.
Yes.
And my lawyer will be suing you.
Yeah.
Thank
Read the
goodness.
room, Rebecca. Read the room. Just kidding.
No, we do live in that age. I mean, there are real causes for people to be upset, but then it can almost be a competition of who can be the most outraged.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the Seattle area. One of my daughters is in grad school in Seattle, and it still kind of has that vibe, unfortunately.
Well, and each community is different. As we noticed through the pandemic, every community reacted differently, and we move past those things and continue to get entertained by people who are creative and can come up with wonderful stories. We don't do any research for our podcast.
Excellent.
Just-
In case you were curious, I am a former pediatric cardiologist.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. And then you went to the Bolivian circus?
Totally.
Okay.
It's all true.
Yeah. But in order to write, not just creative writing, like I could do probably a short story, maybe 5 paragraphs, super short story.
You could do the story about what you thought Jamie's life
Right.
was. Yeah.
You could do it.
Pretty short.
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
But you're writing full books without pictures that will take people more than an hour to read, in theory.
In theory.
Yeah, unless you're a speed reader.
Right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to rush through it. It's
No.
for enjoyment.
Yeah. You have to take a certain amount of meth to get through the book in an hour.
We don't encourage that one. Yeah.
So when did you write your first book?
Oh.
And it doesn't have to be the New York Times bestselling one, like your
Yeah.
first ever
Yeah.
book.
Do you have before Hotel
Books
on the
that
Corner
aren't-
of Bitter and Sweet?
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
It's called a trunk novel. And I don't know why no one keeps it in a trunk. It's usually in their closet or under their bed or in the shed or something like that. Yeah, I do. I have a novel I wrote before Hotel. I worked on it for about 4 years, and it was just a learning experience. It was a terrible book. I have my it's
I highly doubt it's a terrible
it's
book.
unpublishable. It's like basically, yeah, it's torture. If like someone reading that, it'd be like being waterboarded. It's
my.
nothing someone should be subjected to.
That's like violently bad.
It's
then.
terrible. Yeah. My wife has explicit directions that when I die, that book is given a Viking funeral.
Oh, yeah. I would have thought maybe it was like, once I'm gone, you can publish it.
Yeah.
That's my fear. I mean,
That it will be published.
Yeah,
You just
I
don't
know.
have that much trust in your wife.
no. Yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, it's just every author's fear, I think, is to have their practice sessions made public as if they weren't practice. And every musician had years of them just plinking away in their mom's basement with off notes. And it takes years before you can play something that someone actually wants to listen to, let alone pay for, let alone,
Right.
maybe play at their wedding or something like that.
And that's a good thing to remember, too, when you are basking in the glow of wonderful success where that started.
Basking in the glow of that wonderful success.
Again,
as I
this
go
is
home
our
and-
narrative. This is the story we've created about Jamie Ford.
It's true. Yeah, my wife reminded me as we were, finishing up at the Today Show at NBC. And she was like, okay, don't forget next week you have to pick up dog poop in the backyard.
Like, here's your
So-
to-do list. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that much changes.
And okay, so let's talk about that since you brought that up. The Today Show with Jenna Bush Hager, the Read with Jenna, your newest release here, The Many Daughters of Afong Moy, was chosen. Not only is it a New York Times bestseller, but it was also chosen for the Read with Jenna pick. You got to go on the Today Show. I ran into Jamie in Cassiopeia Books, which we'll talk more about Cassiopeia
Sure.
later. But right before you were heading to New York for the Today Show. Tell us about that experience. What was that call like, saying, hey, your book has been picked for this massive book club?
Yeah, hanging with Jenna B. The way I found out about it, that it wasn't official, but there was some rumors. More than rumors. I was on a Zoom with a library in Kentucky, and it's just me and a librarian and like 50 patrons, and I do these all the time. I get off the Zoom and the phone rings, and it's my publicist, and she says, "Okay, we didn't want to tell you ahead of time because it would freak you out, but
So they know you well.
yeah." There were people from the Today Show on that Zoom just watching you.
Oh, kind of creepy.
There were 9 of them.
Oh my gosh.
Like
What?
I know. I'm like,
9 of the patrons weren't even real patrons.
Yeah.
I know, right? Isn't that terrible? Yeah. And so that's when I first heard that it was being considered. And it actually, the original consideration was Jenna contacted my film agent and wanted to option it for a series, even before it was
That
on
came
the Today Show.
before that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, all the celebrity book clubs, they get these books way in advance. So she probably got a manuscript in January. So this will come out in November. So she got it way ahead of time. And they, these book clubs read it. They sort of plan out their selections 6 months in advance. And she really liked it. And eventually, I passed muster. I had another Zoom interview with producers, and they basically they're vetting you for television. They want to make sure you're emotionally stable enough to go on
To have
national.
You're
National
not going
interview.
to lose your crap in the
Yeah.
middle of something.
Yeah, that you're not going to the green light goes on the camera and you turn into Alex Jones
Yeah,
or something
right,
like that. Like I'm
yeah.
here to talk about interdimensional sex vampires or something.
Yeah. I mean, probably good that they vet people for that. And
Yeah.
you passed that. Good job.
Good job,
Yeah.
Jamie.
Yeah, I call it housebroken for
Yeah,
television.
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Very true.
But they, my only real the whole thing was cool, but the only part that really felt like a rock star moment was they picked me up at my hotel in a car, and then they drove me 3 blocks to the studio.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Poor you, not having to walk 3 blocks.
Yeah, because 3
My
blocks, I
husband-
would have quit.
My husband got a cab to go across the street. So
What kind of street are we
Was it-
talking about?
one in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. There
Wow.
was a completely different environment. He was not with his full faculties.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
That makes sense.
couldn't find the one thing he
Was
was
this a
looking
pretty
for.
wide street?
Nope.
Oh.
Just really late
trying to
in
give
the
him some
evening.
credit here.
Nope, just really late in the evening.
Okay.
Now I'm beginning to wonder. Maybe the Today Show thinks authors are all
Or just like
morning drinkers.
Ooh, yeah. Little woozy there.
No, I would think 3 blocks in New York, there's plenty of opportunity to get lost.
Yeah.
I mean, truth be told, they take you to 30 Rock. There's like a secret door. It's not, I mean, it's just there's no signage. They just basically push a button and then it opens up and then people from NBC whisk you in and slam the door.
Was there a sound like, oh, when the door opens? Like, you've made it, sunshine. Like,
Just God rays shining down.
I've always just imagined it's like the most unglamorous thing because you don't want to draw attention to certain areas or people. And so everything that's glamorous is where nobody can get in. And, you know, if they were just to go around the corner in the alley by the dumpster,
there's the celebrities.
There's Jamie Ford
just hanging out,
waiting for that door to open,
knocking on hello. Well,
I'm supposed to be here, I think.
Yeah. Don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so tell me more about the film option. I didn't realize that came before the rest of it. What can you tell us about that process right now?
Oh, I mean,
nothing.
Yeah.
That was the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah,
what does that even mean then to have this film option?
No, I mean, anytime I talk about film options, I have to add the big asterisk that lots of things get optioned and lots of things do not get produced. And so there's a lot of excitement, but until someone says roll camera, then I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. In this case, Jenna, she worked for NBC. NBC is owned by Universal, so she had a special deal with Universal for her to bring them a book. And she's had this book club for a number of years, and she decided this was the book. And she has a producing partner. When I went on the Today Show, people said, like, oh, you seem very comfortable. And I was still a little nervous, but I had talked to Jenna multiple times before that regarding film stuff. So it was the first time we'd met and we got to hug and, kind of hang out, but we had chatted before.
Yeah.
They've optioned it for a premium cable series. So that would be something that would be on HBO Max or Netflix or Hulu, that kind of thing. There's a screenwriter who's been working on it for a number of months, and that's where it's at. I'm an executive producer, I'm a consulting partner, and that is all I
can say.
know. Yeah. I mean, I can say
Is
a little bit more, but that's it's just insider baseball. That's kind of boring.
Is it normal someone else would do the screenplay for it?
Yeah, it's more common. I mean, just because I wrote a book doesn't mean I could write a screenplay. It's a different
Those
art.
are different mediums.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind giving it a shot, but I have other books to write. And the first thing my editor said was, please tell me we're not going to lose you to Hollywood. Because some authors will just disappear. They'll switch careers and they'll become a screenwriter. And I don't think that's in my future. But
Well, isn't it a different thought process? I would think you have to think through the story completely different.
Yeah, and it's collaborative, and collaborative means a lot of compromise, and that's fine. But the
For
beauty
some
of
people.
yeah, for some people, forget you. It's all me. Everyone in the room, take notes. I'm going to talk.
I'm the expert on this.
Yeah, but the beauty of being a novelist is it's just me, and I eventually work with my editor, but for the most part, it's just me, and I can make all those decisions. Sometimes, there's a force multiplier creatively when you're in a writer's room with a bunch of people, and I'd love to be a part of that. So maybe there'll be an opportunity for that down the road, but they have to, have a couple screenplays, kind of have the arc of the series, and then get one of the big streamers to pick it up.
So when you were in kindergarten and then you made it to high school, did you think I'm just going to write books for a living?
Did I think I was going to write books for a living?
I mean, because I'll look back on my own career and go, I would have never guessed this is where I would have ended up. There's just nobody who's like, I said it this morning, I'm going to look at full page ads and say, I don't really like it.
As your job.
That's my
part of
job.
your job. Yeah.
That's your job. Now, I had an aptitude test in high school that recommended that I be a truck driver. So that shows you my literary skills at the time. Part of it was I mean, actually, I've always been interested in the arts. My mom wanted me to be a writer. My dad wanted me to be a fine artist. I worked as a graphic designer, an art director, a creative director. I worked in the arts for about 17 years, but I was always writing on the side, just so I had this creative sandbox that was unassociated with my day job. And eventually, I just wanted to move into the sandbox.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a friend who's an accountant. And if you
Wow, okay.
Yeah. More power to him.
Yeah.
were to spend any time with her, you would really think she missed her calling in the creative world.
Really? Does she get creative with accounting? That sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
She never
Maybe
gets
illegal.
creative
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
accounting.
yeah, I like that.
But I will
Work
tell
for the
you,
mob.
the woman owed me like $10.32. And she sent
Okay.
me the $10.32 to me by mail over the course of a year and a half.
I love it.
Pennies, nickels
Oh my gosh.
at a time, and each one accompanied by some letter. And the creative writing, I have
my gosh.
a folder at home of this, and we would laugh and giggle and just random stuff. Sometimes it would be on a note. Sometimes it would be like, this person called message thing. This person called and this is what they wanted from you, and just made all this stuff up. So I'm like,
Wow.
you might have missed your calling
Yeah.
I think
to
she
have
did.
that release somehow. Like, you must just suck being an accountant because this is really quality work.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I was all
Wow.
excited to get my 3 cents. The postage she paid to send me this $10.32 was
Ended up being way more.
like $380.
oh my gosh,
Yeah,
over the
no.
course of that time.
No,
wow.
I like that.
Because when you tape quarters to a piece of paper and mail them, that's heavy.
It takes, yeah. Oh, true. Yeah. It requires more than one stamp.
Yeah, I want the name of this accountant.
Yeah.
When she pays me.
Are you still not paid in full for that?
I am fully paid for the $10.32.
Okay.
But,
There's
you know,
other
I'm
outstanding.
going to try to figure out how to monetize this podcast. So
Okay. Yeah.
no freebies there.
Mm.
Unless
No
you're a
royalties
guest.
paid either later. Yeah. So we were talking about your other life before
My other
diving
life,
into the
yeah.
full sandbox, if you will.
Before the witness protection program.
Yes, before this all happened. So that's what brought you. You grew up in Seattle.
Mhm.
That's what brought you to Montana, to Great Falls.
did.
Was your career with Went and these other creative elements, and then
Graphic
you've
design.
and you've been here ever since.
Yeah, before Montana, and I've been here since '99. I was living and working in Hawaii. I missed the mainland. I was trying to get back. I was looking at Oregon and Washington and Idaho. I hadn't quite thought about Montana, but I'd been here as a kid and had a great time. And there was,
Nothing bad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get eaten by a bear or left at a truck
That's always
stop.
the goal.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all good.
All good stuff.
Yeah, all good things. And there was a headhunter who kind of tracked me down and thought this would be a good fit, and it really was. I wanted to live in a smaller town, better quality of life for my kids. I wanted to live someplace that had great access to the outdoors, and I wanted to live in a place where I could have enough time in my day to write. And I literally added up all of my hours commuting in Hawaii, and I lived in Kailua, I worked in Honolulu. I had an 11-mile commute that was beautiful, but would take me anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes each way.
Oh wow, yeah.
I added it all up. I was spending 3.5 weeks of every year in my car in traffic.
Oh wow.
And that's just sounded horrible when you think about it.
When you put it all
Like,
together like
How
that.
much else you could be doing with your life?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I moved to Great Falls. I can ride my bike to work in 10 minutes and have all that time to do something else. And that something else became writing.
That's
Became the
awesome.
sandbox. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, did you meet your wife before moving to Great Falls? Is she from Great Falls?
Yeah, she's born and raised in
Okay,
Great Falls, went to
okay.
Great Falls High.
There you go.
Yeah, she lived in
I knew
California.
there was a part of this story that involved somebody living here.
There you go. There it is. Just got the wrong person of the
Yeah.
couple. Yeah.
Yeah, but we met at the public library here, Great Falls
How-
Public Library.
Poetic and perfect for your story, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a little. Yeah, it wasn't singles night at the library. It wasn't wet T-shirt night at the library. It's just
Maybe
the
they
public
should do
library.
that.
Yeah.
No, it cheapens the experience
Well, but we need people to go to the library, so
for the right reasons.
well, maybe they'll go for that and then fall in love with the
Reading.
rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could
We
bring
can
it
hope.
down from wet T-shirt night at the librray to just karaoke night and start
Oh,
there.
hey.
That's respectable.
Yeah. I
So
like that.
Knowing you do graphic design, did you design your covers for your books?
No. And
Knowing you're a graphic designer, when you got options, did you were you tough on them?
the world is better for it that I didn't do it. I don't know. At that point, it's kind of like if you're a chef and someone else cooks for you. It's such a pleasure.
It's nice.
Because you don't have to do it.
Don't have to think about it.
And they have really incredible, design firms doing their covers, and just to sit back and kind of do that, say yes or no, I like this, I don't like that. I mean, that was just such a luxury. So I spend so much time writing the damn book. I don't want to have to, pulp the
Nitpick
paper.
every area.
Yeah, I don't want to have to create the ink. I don't want to do those things.
Just give me the words to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, if he ever does create a book all the way, the words, the ink, the paper, the graphic designed cover.
Epic. Whole new level.
There'll probably just be one.
Yeah, real. It's like craft beer, but books.
Yeah. I like it.
You're not a real artist unless you make your own paper, your own ink.
Wow.
Print it
I
yourself.
can't wait. Mm-hmm. Can't wait till you're on national media and you take that stand.
That you say that.
Yeah.
I am the only real artist.
That's right.
Don't do it in the Zoom meetings with the producer.
Yeah.
Wait till the camera
heard it
goes
first here.
live.
Yeah. I mean, truth be told, I did do 3 or 4 mock covers in Photoshop, and they were fine, and they were directional. But once I saw their capabilities, then I could stand down. I could trust that they're really going to do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
So in the movies, they always depict authors of always up to these deadlines of having to create another book and have this,
Okay, I got to go. Got a deadline.
He's like, yeah, bye.
all the stories, and I can't get anything creative to come, or, they're writing series and they don't know what Samantha's going to do next in book 370. Is it like that for real?
Yes. Pretty much. I don't know. There's a few outliers. There are some authors that just crank books out, and they are just wildly productive. And I don't know how that's possible.
You're not that guy.
I'm not that guy. It takes me longer. I spend more time on it. And I do have times where I'm just not very productive or creative. I'm researching, or I'm honestly, I'm making it sound better. I'm just struggling with what to write. And what happened with my first book, Hotel in the Corner of Bitter and Sweet, was such a big bestseller that it took me a while to write myself out from under that shadow. And then this book blew up, and I've created another shadow.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at
the
now.
curse of the success of it.
Yeah. So suddenly there's all that pressure. It's like I have that second book syndrome all over again.
So you don't have a whiteboard with all these different ideas just waiting for you, I'm going to do a book about this.
Yeah, where do you store all the little nuggets of ideas?
We've got one in the basement for
a whiteboard
for our newsletters. It's the same
totally
thing.
the same scope. Yeah.
Well, truthfully, there's 2 sides to that. One, in my office, I have what I call the wall of madness, and it's just it looks like
madness.
Yeah, it looks like a conspiracy theorist's basement. It's got
that's the picture
Do
I
you
want
have
on
the
the
crime
inside
scene,
cover.
the pinpoint with a
Strings.
string leading to other things?
just about.
Oh.
I do have some red string I thought I would put up there, but that seemed a little too on the nose. But a lot of it is just staring into space, daydreaming. Someone commented that they drove by the dog park and they just saw me sitting there staring into space. And I was
creative mind at work.
And that was it. I was there trying to solve a plot problem. I'm just staring into space, looking at the water, and my dogs are running around. And I look catatonic.
They should have sent the Today Show out to get footage of you sitting there.
Yeah, action footage. It's very, very sexy.
So, Eric, if you're listening, these are the kind of photos that we want for the next book cover sleeve.
It's just Jamie at the dog park.
Yeah, I know.
the wall of mess with the strings.
The string, yes.
Yeah, that's what we want.
I'm picturing this now as like a TV show, like the CSIs, like you see it bouncing back and forth between their face and the wall. Yeah.
Well, Eric's a great writer, and he knows this well. So he participates in this madness.
Yeah.
Do you? In my attempts to be creative, I know often for me, I like to be outside or sit in the sunshine or just walk around a little bit. So you talked about the dog park. How much of the actual writing happens in your office versus your head or wandering around, or do you have other places besides the dog park that you like to do your thinking?
I go for plot walks. That's what I call them. I think I think some other authors use that term as well. I take my dogs to the river. I live about a mile from the Missouri, and so I just need to get out. And I'll even go in winter, just bundle up and we'll just walk through the snow. So plot walks help. Just anything to change up the trajectory of your day, get up, do something else. It's hard. It's not like there's a faucet and it's hot and cold running creative content. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And at least that's how it is for me. For some people who crank out 10 books a year, I shouldn't say 10 books, maybe 3 books a year, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I do think there's perhaps a imbalance in their lives that allows them to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I would have to think, just like comedians or anybody who's artistic, you can't be on all the time.
Right.
And I think there's that expectation that,
yes.
You've written this many books, you should just have idea after idea. And
Or
they
you're
should
just like
flow
instantly
so easily.
creative. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have ideas like all the time. Whether those ideas become books or not, that's a completely... Yeah,
Right.
I have lots of
I
ideas.
look at how many pages are in these books, and I'm like, that takes a lot of thought. Like, I have an idea that might fill a chapter.
Right.
A chapter is not a book, or a chapter is not, you need a little more depth.
You do. I every author, I get this a couple times a year. Every author gets the email or the call from someone that's like, okay, I've got a great idea for a book. Here's my idea. And if you write it, we'll split the profits. And I'm like, thank you. That's a great idea. You should write that. And by the way, I had 20 ideas before breakfast.
Right.
So ideas are cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did business consulting before I led our tourism effort, and I would get people all the time. They're like, I've got this idea, and I just need to have somebody buy it and make it happen. I'm like, that's not really the way this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to do proof of concept and file your patent and then try to sell that, you might be a little further down the road, but just coming up, and they weren't ideas that were really what I would say
They never are.
Sellable.
marketable.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I just sit there and look at them like, your world is completely different than mine, where you think that's a valid idea. But I would never said that. I was never mean to people.
Wow. Good
To their
job.
face.
Yeah, I was like, held it
Yeah.
in. Yeah. I want to talk too about the creative world. So we're talking, obviously an author, you've done the graphic design. We also learned you worked in the world of tourism.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about your tourism time, what you did.
Yeah, I can't check into a hotel without thinking about hotel occupancy and whether they have a local option tax and things like that. It's just kind of in my DNA now. I worked in advertising in Alaska, and we did Southeast Alaska tourism.
Oh, wow.
I then moved to Hawaii, where I worked on Hawaii tourism, Hawaiian Airlines, Hyatt Resorts.
Big tourism communities.
Yes.
Yeah, and that background is why I was a good fit to come to Montana and work on Montana tourism. It was just that I spoke that language. Plus, Montana's a cool place, and yeah, it was a great fit in a bunch of different ways, and that's how I ended up at Went. Spent many nights working on advertising campaigns and on photo shoots and TV shoots and going to the governor's conference on tourism and just plugged into
All
that
the
world.
stuff.
Yeah.
So, is it intentional, or have you never even thought of it, that your surroundings, like physical surroundings, don't necessarily show up in your book?
It's
Books.
Yeah. Yeah. Intentional, no. By default, yeah. It's just, I find that writers write about what they lament. And so I miss the Seattle that I grew up in, and I miss Oregon where I lived as a child. And I don't miss Montana because I'm here. And so it's why the late, great Ivan Doig, he's from central Montana. He spent the last 40 years of his life in Seattle. writing about Montana, and I'm in Montana writing about Seattle.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
Yeah, when I finally met Ivan and we shook hands, I did think like we might have that Freaky Friday moment where
You switch
Body
lives.
switch.
our brains transpose into each other's bodies. But I've written one story set in Montana, set in Glendive.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like Glendive.
I like small towns in Montana. They have so much character. And I probably will, but there's a pantheon of great Montana authors, and I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And my curiosity goes elsewhere. So that's kind of how it's been.
So your books, the four books that have made it past the trunk, what was it, the trunk novel process?
Yeah, the trunk novel.
So you have Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet, your debut novel. You have Songs of Willow Frost, Love and Other Consolation Prizes, which I got to do an interview with Jamie again back at my Why Old TV days when Love and Other Consolation Prizes came out.
Indeed.
Did an interview with him in his home, saw his home studio. I did not see any of the string on the wall, though, the madness
I'm
wall.
the only one who hasn't been in your house.
Yeah.
From this team, yes.
Yeah, I leave the back door unlocked.
Yeah.
So
I was invited.
So if I just show up in the kitchen one day.
I was invited and Jamie knew I was there. That's the difference, though, between me and Callie's experience. And then finally, your newest effort, The Many Daughters of Among Foy. 3 New York Times bestselling books. This is the most recent one. Like you said, you're kind of, as I said, you're living and basking in the glow of the current success and then feeling the pressure for for continued success. This book, I have really been enjoying reading it. I love the back and forth between these different generations, between the different time periods. And to me, just amazing mind that you have to be able to intertwine all of those
100%.
stories.
And keep them straight.
Yes.
I'm notorious for writing an email and then just stopping mid-sentence and like not finishing it. And, you're building.
And just press send.
Yeah, like someone will figure it out. But you've got these complex characters that you're having to follow time periods and moving back and forth. Please tell me you didn't write it the way it's produced. Like, you had to have told this person's story and then this
kind of
person's
split
story
it
and
up.
then figured out how to meld them together? Or do you just like, editors figure it out?
I wrote it backwards in Latin, which is what I normally do. It's
Wow.
more challenging that way.
Yeah, in between your stint as what, a pediatrician?
Yeah. No, with my other books are split narratives, and I bounce back and forth in time, and those ones I write start to finish. I tried that with this book, and I got about 100 pages in, and it just tied my brain in knots. I could not do it. And so for the first time, I did break it all apart.
Wow.
I wrote each narrative by itself, and then wove them all together.
And then figured out. Wow.
Do you ever, after it's published, go, oh, crap, I forgot to tie up that. I forgot.
Hopefully somebody else catches that if there's a loose end.
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of a trope in with authors of the best way to proofread your novel is to write it, send it to your editor or copy editor or proofreader, get it published, and then wait for that one email to roll in from someone.
Hey, what about that?
Yeah, there's 2 things in there that I would want to correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they'll be corrected before the paperback. But at the moment, it's one of those things that I look at the thing a million times. My editor does, all these people do, and then suddenly there's just something that's right there that's glaringly obvious, but we didn't see it.
Do you think it's because you get lost in the characters and the story, and you kind of you fall in love with these characters and get so entrenched in it that you just kind of don't?
You're so
Finish
generous. You're so generous.
I'm sitting
I
there
was gonna
thinking,
say,
is this... I'm just waiting for the answer on this one.
Yeah, you're so kind and generous. For me, I'm just like, I was lazy that day. I stayed up.
Well, there's nothing lazy about your storytelling.
Yeah,
No.
like I stayed up late, binging Game of Thrones, and then didn't have enough sleep and just breezed through it and thought, someone else will catch
It won't matter.
That'll be good enough.
Yeah.
So with your most we'll just talk about your most recent book because I
Sure.
have it sitting. I keep touching it for some reason. It's sitting in front of me.
Thank God there's no video
Just
for
like your
this.
colleague
which is beautiful,
that
by
comes
the
into
way.
my house all the time.
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if that's a good thing that I'm reminding you of that. So Afong Moy is a real person, but this is quote, fictionalized history, if you will. Also talks about inherited trauma, generational thing, and there's some interesting research I know you talked about with your interview with Jenna Bush-Hager that contributes to that. And we can talk about that later. But Afong Moy, tell us about who she was and how she inspired this novel.
Sure, yeah. Afong Moy was the first Chinese woman to come to America. Came to this country in 1834. For a hot moment, she was the most famous woman in America. She was written about in more than 200 newspapers, traveled up and down the eastern seaboard from Canada to Cuba, performed hundreds of times in sold-out theaters, went to the White House and met President Jackson at his request. I was fascinated by this person, but we never hear from Afong. It's always, we never hear how she feels about anything.
Right.
It's always the sensationalized promotions of those people who have monetized her. And
Someone else's version of what?
Yeah, because the excitement about Afong, it never touches upon the fact that Chinese women couldn't leave China at the time, and if they returned, the punishment was death. And so she wasn't here as this intrepid world traveler or a cultural ambassador. In all likelihood, she was sold into the service. And the last anyone hears about her is 1849. It was reported that someone found her living in a poorhouse in New Jersey. And she had bound feet, so her capabilities were super limited. So her story, in all likelihood, ends tragically. And I'd known about her for decades. I wanted to write about her, but it wasn't until I went down the rabbit hole of epigenetics and I realized I could give her fictional descendants and tell her story that way.
Epigenetics, for those, will you explain that
She
word?
means me. I'm always the lowest common denominator in the room.
Well, because it plays so much into the story here that you built, and this idea of the generational trauma and things. Yeah.
I mean, the book is about generational trauma, inherited trauma, which is kind of heavy. So I call the book my epigenetic love story. Epigenetics, when you think of genetic inheritance, people think of physical traits like hair color and eye color. Yeah. And epigenetics is the idea that we inherit psychological traits like phobias and resiliency, and how we interact with other people. And by creating fictional descendants for Afong, going from the 1800s to about 2045, I can give her a voice, I can redeem her story, and I can have aspects of her life ripple through all these other generations. And that's much of what the book is about.
Which is cool. I also am enjoying reading it because I know how to read. But also,
I don't think we were questioning that.
There is an audiobook.
Really? I looked at it because I wanted to get through it fast, but I enjoy reading. So did you have to get permission from family members to be able to fictionalize an actual person? Or did you just throw caution to the wind? I'm like, yeah, legal team will figure that out.
Yes and no. With my first book, there is one real character. I got permission from his daughter since he had passed away in the 60s. If it's historical characters, in general, when it comes to fiction, they're fair game. Unless if it's someone that's, especially if they passed away 150 years ago or something, if it's someone today and you're really basing the whole book on their life and profiting from it, then they may have cause for some legal recourse. But for the most part, it's fiction, so we live in a free speech world, and that's kind of the beauty of fiction. It's this canvas where really anything can go.
And you wanted to give her redemption. I think I heard you talk. You mentioned it, and I've heard you talk in other interviews about that. You wanted to give some redemption and this love story component because you're a lover of love stories.
I am. Yeah, I love love stories.
Mm-hmm.
Deep abiding weakness for love stories.
Was that difficult to take such a heavy subject and create a redeemable story?
Yeah, I mean, my definition of redemption is maybe different than other people's.
Sure.
And so
Redemption doesn't necessarily mean sunshine, butterflies, happy.
It doesn't necessarily mean an ending with rainbows and unicorns and everybody dancing.
I mean, that's what our dates are like.
That's reality. Yeah. Hold on, the disco balls. Just lit
dropping
up.
from the ceiling.
No, I just wanted to give her not necessarily a happy ending, but a less tragic ending, or an ending that felt better in your emotional register. But even that, my original ending was much more tragic than what was published. My editor pulled me aside and said, "Jamie, we have to make sure the reader survives the journey."
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it was a little
too much
painful. I know. I just naturally.
Do you wish that still could have been the ending? Are you?
No.
Do you want somebody to close the book and throw it across the room? Like, what are you doing, Ford?
Yeah. With my second book, I often sign that book. And I sign it with, "I'm sorry about page 184. I tried to talk her out of it. And because people would email me when they got to that page and they're either crying or they're outraged.
Wow.
And it's not like I'm a sadist as an author, but if I try to, with my characters, I'm either tormenting them or I'm giving them comfort and relief, and anything in between is boring, so I'm leaving that out.
You gotta include the drama.
Yeah,
that's what sells.
But because I know how my books are going to end before I start writing, I never know if I'm being tragic enough because I'm so close to it, and I know it's going to have a redemptive ending. And so I worry about it affecting. I want it to affect people emotionally. So sometimes I just go way too far. And my editor pulls me back from the brink. My wife pulled me back from the brink. My wife, when she read this first draft, she was sitting across the room from me, and she got to the 10 pages from the end, and she just looked up at me and said, "F you."
Oh no!
This is
perfect. An emotional
That's what I was
reaction.
going for. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, "I can't believe you did that," and I'm like, "Too much?" And she's like, "Yes."
So that was the original ending.
Yeah, that was the original redemptive ending.
Okay.
But laden with more tragedy.
Oh my goodness.
What do you hope that people take away from or explore in themselves or their own families or lives from this book?
That's pretty
Is
deep.
it beyond something beyond pure entertainment?
Yeah. I say this often. I consider myself someone in the compassion creation business. And so I want to write books that give people's empathy muscles a workout. There are other people that are good at writing thrillers and mysteries and things like that. I want things to, entertain, but also educate and edify a little bit. That's really my overall goal. It's kind of who I am as a writer, and I just lean into it instead of fighting it and thinking, okay, this type of book is popular, so I should write that. I just divorce myself from all those expectations and do my own thing.
In the dedication page of of this book, you write, I'm pulling it up here. You say this book is for anyone with a complicated origin story. I feel you. So
you can tell who the real journalist in the room is, right?
She just goes
is there. Really a question?
So
I was just going to talk about your son and the great songs he likes to listen to, but here we go.
We should get to that too.
Okay.
Well, we'll go deep with this and then we'll go back to that one because that's in the introduction to this book as well.
Yes, it is.
So you say, I feel you, lending to some type of personalized relation to something in this story.
Tough origin stories.
Yeah.
Like a DC comic.
Oh,
Yeah,
superhero
going there.
over here.
Yeah, I like comics, so that hits a
whole
joyful
nother
nerve.
thing. Yeah.
We all have complicated origin stories. We didn't arrive fully formed. We're a product of our parents and our grandparents, whether it's environment or nature. I think genetics has more to do with it than our egos can admit. But I do a lot of speaking events, and afterwards people say, "Wow, you're so funny." And the underlying thing is humor comes from emotional pain. If you've ever met a stand-up comic, they are the most depressed people on the planet because they've had torturous lives, and humor is a way of coping. Pat Conroy, an author I loved and admired, he was hilarious, and like he had the most horrific childhood. And he said the best thing any writer can, the greatest gift a writer can receive is an unhappy childhood. And for Pat, it was like Christmas every morning. Like it was just that unhappy. And so I wrote that kind of acknowledging my own strange journey, but no one gets through life without a few scars or having their heart broken, or if they do, they're not really living life.
Agreed.
So.
That's what makes you the character you are.
Mm-hmm. The good, the bad, the ugly, all the depths.
I mean, in general, just on the surface, my dad was Chinese, my mom was Caucasian. They got married at a time when it was illegal for interracial couples to get married in my mom's home state of Arkansas. So, I mean, my origin story just logistically was complicated, but then I had very complex parents with, our collective ACE scores are all kind of off the register.
So, Van Halen.
The music choice didn't surprise me.
Let's talk Van Halen. You don't realize it here, but Shannon is wearing leopard print spandex.
Oh, yes.
Her hair's teased
Totally.
to the
It's
sky.
I do
brushing the
have like
ceiling.
a crimper tool from
You
like
still have
80s
a
style that I
crimper?
use. No, not still. It's new that I use in my hair sometimes. Just trying to bring
see
that
the
back.
age differences
Yeah.
there. I'm like, oh, you still have your crimper?
No, it's new. It's come back. So I do have that. No leopard spandex though. Yeah.
Are there?
I think you're going to talk about Van Halen, which relates to my son Taylor, who is a working musician. But when he
There
was
it
in
is.
high school, his sisters would straighten his hair
Oh my gosh.
because they did it as an experiment one time, and it looked so good that he would just be like, "Could you straighten my hair this morning?"
Don't tell anyone.
I would often dress my brother up as a girl, just because I didn't have a sister.
So let's
Okay.
explore that.
Let's talk. Let's go there.
But his hair, like I'd get to curl his hair. His hair was amazing. It would hold curl. My hair was not like that. And I'm like, oh, can I do your hair? And he's like, God. I mean, we did live in the middle of nowhere. It's not like anyone was going to happen into the house and see him.
that
I mean,
process.
Our closest neighbor was 10 miles away. So it wasn't, that wasn't really the
It
case.
wasn't a big risk for him there.
But he's like, I don't want you to do my hair anymore. And I'm like, fine. But it's such good hair. But completely irrelevant to this conversation. The thing that I find interesting is because my husband and I were talking about this new song that's on the radio by, I'm going to just completely forget this at all. But the artist was popular in the 70s. And so because of Stranger Things.
Oh, Kate Bush,
Yeah.
running up that hill.
There we go.
Yeah.
So Kate Bush's song is now charting today, and we're driving around, and my husband says, because when I first heard it, I'm like, it's got these weird 70s, 80s vibes. Is that music coming back? So then I did some research and watched the video, and I'm like, the video is completely from that era as well. Find out the song
Surprise.
is actually from that era, which is why I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So then we're driving, and my husband's like, it's a really cool song. And I'm like, yeah, it's weird that it's that old and now popular on the radio. And he's like, no, it's a remake. Of what? Like, so I'm like, I thought he knew something I didn't.
Yeah.
But it's that idea that this song is now popular with younger generation and they
Totally.
think it's new. And then it reminded me of a moment I had with my mom, and we were listening to like a Debbie Gibson song, and she started singing along with it. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh,
She's like, what are you doing?
Like, Mom, take off that tube top.
like,
It's not the 80s.
she's like, well, this is a remake. I'm like, no, it is not. Debbie Gibson does not do remakes. Like, it's original, her thought. No, it wasn't. It was a song from the 70s. So I was like, oh, this is very interesting. So then it tied me directly into like, oh, these are my people. Van Halen. Are there other moments besides your son's experience with Van Halen where you're like, huh, these must be my children?
Talking about that generational thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, these are my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'm trying to think if it's copacetic to say this. Yeah. My son was, he had the same musical taste growing up. Now his musical taste sort of, left me in the dust. But I found this interesting. I'm actually never shared this.
Exclusive.
I mean,
He's not scared.
on a
Publicly,
podcast. But my best friend as a young boy growing up was gay. He came out years later. Both of my sons in high school, their best friends were gay. We're
Interesting.
queer. And I was like, oh, we're just sensitive dudes
Yeah.
that are safe for, a queer boy in high school to hang with. My Taylor, his best friend in high school, came out to him in high school. Didn't come out until, years after. And so I think, we're genetically wired the same, I think, that we're fairly accepting, fairly artistic. And, it helps, like, in this day and age, for the most part, in high schools, nobody cares. Like, it was different when I was in high school. There was one kid who was out, and he was teased relentlessly. It's much different. It's not perfect, but it's better. But I thought that was interesting, that when it comes to genetic inheritance and how we are put together, there's definitely a similarity.
Beyond from music choice to other
Yeah.
characteristics
All
there.
elements.
Yeah. I mean, it's how people, like the type of friends that you have, your children may have very similar social structure. And I don't think that's an accident.
No.
Interesting.
It's I find the same thing. Like, I will look at some of the behaviors and characteristics of my mom growing up. I'm thinking, oh, I'm just nothing like her. Like, I clearly was adopted or was like my aunt gave birth to me and gave it to my mom to raise. Like, there's just elements where you're like, how are we part of this family? And now as I get older and I see certain behaviors in her, I'm like, that's where I get that. Like, sometimes I wonder, like, why am I this way? And then in odd moments, in odd scenarios, I'm like, this is where that comes from.
Yeah, my handwriting, my penmanship is identical to my dad's.
Oh, wow.
And my dad's been gone for 20 plus years, but yeah, it's his chicken scratch is my chicken scratch. It's wild. You can set them side by side and they look identical.
Interesting.
So it's so weird. The things you don't notice, like in those moments, and you have to look back and go, oh.
Right. And a handwriting analysis looked at my dad's handwriting and determined he was a serial killer. So obviously I have
So
you're next.
tendencies now.
Oh, dear. If we don't make it out
So
of the
it'll be a
studio.
thriller.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my next novel.
He's
Oh,
changing
look for
genres.
that, yeah. Those discussions, my mind then goes to this complex question of, okay, can we break free from that then?
Ooh.
The nature
Nope.
versus nurture.
Nope. You were going to grow up to be your mom.
Mindset.
Deal with it.
Well, that's what people, you hear people talk about that. And then it's like, okay, how much can mentally I determine to be different, but then my mind is shaped by my genetic upbringing. So that's just where my mind goes, this philosophical, psychological inquiry that just leads you in circles of trying to figure out who you are. Yeah.
So I'm just going to change topics
Good.
because that's
Yes.
what I do.
Please
Awkward
do.
transitions.
Excellent. Okay.
How long did it take you? How long does it take you to write a book?
Oh, during a pandemic year or not? That's the X factor.
Good question.
All my books took different amounts of time. My first book only took like 3 months, which is, and it as its construction, it's a lesser book to my new book. I've just become a better writer. I've learned along the way.
That happens.
So
You get better with age.
you
just
get,
like
you get
wine.
better. Yeah. So this book took about 2 years, but one of those years was the pandemic shutdown. And I travel a lot for book stuff and speaking gigs and things like that. And so I wasn't able to travel. So it was the first time, I went 9 months without getting on an airplane. It was the longest time I stayed in one place in 10 years. And so because of that, I was super productive. And so this book probably, in a normal circumstance, would probably have taken 3 years.
Now, we know from the movies you have deadlines.
Yeah, from the movies. Yeah.
Would a book take longer for you to write if you did not have like specific deadlines that you were looking to meet? Or
are the
can
deadlines
you
good or
just-
bad for creativity?
Can you just get to that point where you're like, yep, this book is done?
Yeah, deadlines are weird. And when I first started out with my second book, I was late on my deadline and I was stressed. And I went to a writing festival. There's a bunch of authors there, and I was complaining that I said to another guy, I said, I'm stressing out. I'm 4 weeks past my deadline. And he said, 4 weeks? I'm 4 years.
So you're like, it makes me feel better.
So yeah. And talking to my editor, she would always rather wait for an excellent book than to try and publish something that was rushed. And unfortunately, if you're writing something that's more formulaic, like a cozy mystery or something that, there's some authors that are just known for kind of writing the same book over and over and over again.
Yeah,
They have a
just
formula.
changing the people.
Yeah. Then those editors expect a certain adherence to those deadlines. But with the type of books I write, my editor knows I'm not a book a year person. I want to be, I can't be. I do too much research. It takes too much time. And so, yeah, deadlines, they definitely stress me out, even though I know they're very flexible. I mean, currently I'm way past my deadline on my second book. But the current book is doing so well that buys me some cover. Yeah,
We'll give them some.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
gotta
they're
be kind of
leniency.
challenging to be living in the world of the current book and massive popularity, trying to fly however many different places you fly in 1 week or just since this book has come out, and then also still trying to
it's hard.
be in the creative stages and process of trying to make another book happen.
Yeah.
It looks glamorous, but it's a tough
That
life.
seems hard.
Yeah, it can be a real. I mean, it's it's not a physically challenging book. I'm not working in a coal mine. I'm not on a roof in the summertime in 105-degree weather. So don't anyone feel sorry for me. But it's not easy when someone's like, okay, write something that not only will people pay money for, but hopefully they will buy as a gift for someone else. It's hard. And you try to be an artist and do your own thing, but it's hard to ignore the economic reality of
It's a
of
business.
what you're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how have you even kept track of how many? Because I follow you on your social accounts, and it seems like every other day you're scheduled for somewhere new, flying back from somewhere new, posting an airport picture of some kind. What has that journey, kind of the press tour, if you will, been like since this book has come out?
This book was better. I mean, part of it is with my last book, I traveled more, but the book wasn't doing as well. And so that is painful. It's my agent hates it when I use this metaphor, but I was like, it felt like I'm delivering a stillborn baby every night for 6 weeks.
It seems like she hates the metaphor.
Yeah.
I know. I'm a writer.
I mean, it creates the correct picture.
Yeah.
But it definitely it illustrates the picture. This one, I did 26 cities in about 6 weeks, but the book was doing so well that even on my worst day, the book still gives me reason to smile. And Yeah, no, I mean, the first book tour was super romantic because I've never been on one. I didn't know what this was like. And yes, my publisher pays for these things and they arrange for all your travel. But it can be, the reality is I would, get up at 4, catch a plane at, 7, land someplace at 11, have someone pick me up. We would drive around to 10 bookstores, sign stock, get to my hotel at 3, kind of catch up on emails, be at a bookstore at 5, be there signing books, doing stuff till 9, get back to the hotel, go to bed, and get up at 4 again. And it's a different city every single night. And so you can see how it can just lose its glamour.
Yeah.
Really
so
quickly.
glad to be here, Cleveland, and
you're Toronto
Nashville.
or something.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I imagine it's the similar, as you are probably repeating on the podcast, similar questions, conversations, things you're kind of regurgitating every day in a new city.
it is. And I mean, there's certain things I'm happy to talk about. But whenever someone has a really interesting question, or I love visiting high schools and colleges because often kids will ask just wildly unfiltered things. And that's so much fun.
Yeah.
And people
have no idea what's coming.
Yeah. And my hosts are like, okay, are there some things you don't want to talk about? And I'm like, please, no. Let them ask whatever they want because it makes it really surprising.
Yeah. And speaking of schools, I know with your debut novel, Hotel in the Corner, Bitter and Sweet, there's educational guides, there's pictures on your website of kids in the classroom reading this book. It's become
I'm homework.
A teachable, your homework, and
Sorry,
everyone
kids.
loves you for it. Yeah. Why do you feel like that book has become such an educational piece for students as well?
I mean, it has history, so it's found its way into history curriculum. It's multicultural. I'm in a book club. Shout out to all my book club friends. And about half the guys are high school English teachers, and they have these moments at the tail end of summer where school's about to begin, where they're like, I cannot teach a scarlet letter the 16th time, And so teachers are allowed certain leeway with contemporary novels. And I've just been fortunate that this book has been chosen. Some teachers had read it just for pleasure, thought it would work on a summer reading list, and then it's become required reading in a bunch of states.
Wow.
Which is wild. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on. It has young protagonists that always works well in schools. It's multicultural. It's got history. It's a G-rated book, really, and that makes it easy for school districts to adopt it because they're not suddenly going to have that one person show up at a school council meeting, just
ban this book.
Yes.
Wanting to burn a book that they haven't read, which is always a compelling argument.
Is that maybe an honor if you end up on a banned book list at some point?
Yeah,
That's the direction he's headed. About book 7.
Yeah, I'm waiting for this new book to get banned somewhere because it has. It's nothing. It's very tame compared to the books that are causing some parents to absolutely lose their minds. But those same parents will find everything, and want to ban everything. So I hope they do because it will generate tremendous sales. So thank you. Just ban it.
Thank you in advance for that.
Yeah. I mean, it always.
We'll start the platform to get rid of it in every opportunity.
It has the exact opposite effect that they want.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. It's just so juvenile that they go about it that way. But hey.
So your four books, current books that are that are out right now and available. If someone wants to read all of your books, do you recommend they start with Hotel and move to your current book? Do you have a suggested order, or if they were to pick, their one to start with, what would you recommend?
I'd recommend the new book.
Okay.
Because I think it's me at my best, and then they can compare. I don't know if they're a purist and they want to go. It's like the Beatles. If they want to start with the early albums and work their way up to the White Album, cool. I get that.
Yeah.
But I tend to fall in love with my most recent book, and that's this one. So until I really get the other book I'm working on, on the shelves, this will be the one that I point people to. And I don't know, the book that's really near and dear to my heart is Songs of Willow Frost. It's my forgotten stepchild of a book. That because it followed Hotel, it kind of vanished into the ether.
That's got to be so just a mind
It's like the
bender
middle
for
child.
you.
Yeah. It debuted at number 11 on the New York Times bestseller list, and it felt like failure because the sales metrics could never compare. But that book is probably more personal than all my books, so I have a special spot in my dark heart for that book.
You seem so normal.
Yeah.
Being part of a book club as a writer, that's got to be fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite authors?
Just being in a book club, not as an author, is awesome and interesting. Who are some of my favorite authors?
Yeah.
I mentioned Pat Conroy. Love Pat Conroy. Harlan Ellison. He very popular in the 60s and 70s. One of his books was banned when I was a kid, and I immediately went to the public library, checked it out, and read it. And that was the book that made me want to be a writer. And so, don't ban books. You're going to create the opposite effect of what you want. You're just going to create more authors. I love
Nothing
Harlan's,
bad about that.
Yeah, I mean, Harlan passed away a number of years ago. Before he passed, once I had a little bit of writing success, I'm not really a material person, so I didn't like, let's go buy a Porsche or something. I contacted Harlan. I bought his first typewriter. And so,
oh my gosh, what a special treasure.
Yeah. So that was kind of a special thing for both of us, honestly. I'm trying to think of who else. Jason Mott has a fantastic, his book, Hell of a Book, just won the National Book Award. And I love that book. But there's some contemporary authors that, their stuff is not necessarily super deep, but it's so compellingly entertaining. Like Colleen Hoover is a mega bestseller. I love her stuff, and I get it. I understand why people I understand why 5 of the top 10 best-selling books are all Colleen Hoover books, because she's doing a lot of things right, and she's making a lot of people happy.
Laughing over there.
When you're not reading books or writing books or sitting aimlessly at the dog park
or having your book club ask your opinion because you're the author in the group. Yeah.
Oh, trust me, my book club does not regard me as an
No.
author.
Oh, that's
at
good.
all.
Yeah.
I'm just another
I
dude.
am-
That's good.
Are there book selections where you're like, come on, people, this is
my book club,
there's beer involved with it,
there's
correct?
it's called Books and Brews.
Love it.
We have a logo that Eric designed.
Yeah, it's
we
very
have
nice.
T-shirts, but the books that they generally vote on are way above my reading level. Books that I would not ordinarily pick up. I like
Interesting.
page Turner's contemporary books, and they will pick something like, we're going to read Herzog. It won the Nobel Prize in 1962.
Oh my goodness.
Very academic heavy
Weighty.
books, which is good because they kind of drag me into the deep end of the pool.
So when you're not doing all of those things, you mentioned you were drawn to Montana because of the outdoors. What are the things you love to do besides? Oh, I don't even think we discussed this yet. What are the things you like to do
Yeah.
What are the things I'd like to do?
here in our great outdoors communities?
I mean, one of the things I love about Great Falls is I tell people, if they want to move to Great Falls, they don't live in Great Falls. They live in Montana.
Yeah.
If you live in Missoula, you're kind of in that community. You live in Bozeman, you're kind of in that community. In Great Falls, you have access to the whole state. I mean, and because of that, I love going to Glacier. I love hiking the Rocky Mountain front. I love, putting my kayak in the Missouri River.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. I mean, I've tried fly fishing. I've tried hunting. I've tried upland bird hunting. And I'm just not great at any of those things.
Hey, I tried it once.
Yeah.
Wasn't my thing.
Yeah. I mean, I shot a pheasant. I shot a deer. I broke a very expensive fly rod in half in a car door, a truck door.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the sign from the
Makes
gods
sense.
saying,
This
don't.
This
not
isn't your thing,
This
Jamie.
is not your thing. And so, hiking, kayaking, camping. In the wintertime, a group of friends, and it's really, they're the ones that are behind this every year, but they book a Forest Service cabin.
Oh,
that
fun.
and we ski in and then spend like a week there, and it's
that sounds great.
no electricity, no running water.
Oh my God, that sounds perfect.
A couple years ago, it was 40 below.
Ooh.
And the first night, it only got to 40 degrees in the cabin.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's a wood stove
Yeah.
that takes a while to get going.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we all slept in our ski gear, hats and gloves, in our sleeping bags. And when you spend a whole night having to go outside and chop wood at 40 below.
Yeah.
That's real. It's a Montana experience
It's
right
a
there.
real-
That sure is. Yeah.
Real manly
Earn your
moment.
stripes. Yeah.
Was the bathroom outside as well in the middle of the night?
It was. There was an outhouse. And what we did was I had a pair of heavy wool socks that we put on the toilet seat.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's brilliant.
And
If
yeah.
you don't mind sacrificing your socks for the week.
yeah. And so that's been kind of a thing. Now, every time we go, we bring an extra pair of socks that sort of sleeve up over the apparatus there. And
That's smart.
it was a game changer.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you disc golf.
Yeah, disc
Yeah.
golf. I mean, disc golf it's right there. It's across the street
is.
from where we are right now.
One of the two courses
One
that
of
currently
two.
exist.
One of
Yes.
the two courses. And honestly, when there's a great bluegrass band from Montana. A couple of the guys are from Great Falls, Laney Lou and the Bird Dogs.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
they travel, they bring discs, and
Nice.
that's like the one thing they can all agree on as a band. And so they just, because they're playing in the evenings, when they get there after they do a sound check, they have hours to kill. So they play disc golf all over the country.
That is
And-
cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of what got us into it. And now when I travel, I have a couple discs, and
Take it.
so when I have time, I'll play disc golf in Indiana and Illinois and Pennsylvania.
That's fun.
Well, and discs are a little bit easier to travel with than clubs.
Yeah.
Totally. But truth be told, the course here is fantastic. I mean, it's so
That's what we've
interesting.
heard.
All the level changes. It's super
and
challenging.
the views from up
And-
there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's the best views in town. So aside from maybe up at the airport. So yeah, I'm playing again this afternoon.
Nice. Love
So
it.
yeah, we're trying to get as much playing time in before the snow hits.
That makes sense because it should have already been here, the snow.
Yeah. This
And-
weekend.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
For real?
Possibly, yeah.
yeah.
I pay no attention to the weather.
I'm married to a meteorologist,
I
so
know.
occasionally I find out things. Yeah.
I mean, we watch the news. Robert, my husband, watches the news all the time. He's like, oh, the weather's going to be like this. I'm like, like 80% of the time they're not correct. So I don't
Okay. I
real
have
pay
to
attention.
defend, like, nah.
That's true.
It's directional.
Fine.
He doesn't love the joke where people are like, oh, it's the one job you can
Yeah.
be wrong 90% of the time and still keep it.
But there are so many times he'll plan his weekend based on what the weather's going to be, and then the weather doesn't do that.
Yeah. Well, we do live in
Montana.
Great Falls, Montana. You got to be ready.
So I'm ready. I'm ready for anything.
Yes.
I look outside the window, and that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Truth be told, I don't really think that much in advance about the weather anymore,
Me neither.
Yeah. for better or worse.
What else do we have? What else?
Well,
What is the dumbest question
Oh.
you get asked?
was it
Or
in this
the one-
podcast?
It was just asked of me. No, I'm just kidding.
Like the one you get asked all the time, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
and you smile
Yeah.
and you answer it, but it's like, come
I'm
up
tired
with.
of that question.
I mean, it's not a dumb question. It's a reasonable question, but people always ask, like, where do your ideas come from? Harlan Ellison, the author that I mentioned,
Yeah.
he used to always say Schenectady. And they're like, what? And he's like, yeah, Schenectady, New York. There's a idea service. You send them $20 a month. They send you a 6-pack of fresh ideas.
That's fantastic.
And invariably, someone would be like, can I get the address?
Perfect.
Yeah, so there's questions like, I don't know. I don't really mind the questions because it's by the time I'm answering questions, it's like I describe it. This part of the publishing cycle, it's like blowing your birthday candles out again and again every night. It's so easy. It's so enjoyable. You get a little winded, but that's the worst of it. Writing the book is the hard part. So anything that comes in the touring part, it's fun. It's a pleasure. Even though it can be a grind at times, it's never something I really complain about. It's part of the job.
I just realized you actually have an agent, and we didn't.
Multiple agents.
We probably didn't go through an agent to book him.
No, I didn't. No.
No one does. That's okay.
I was just thinking,
I have
there's probably a process that we did not follow.
I do have a publicist, and that's usually how it goes. But even still, we live in, I don't know, an age of profound accessibility because of social media. So I get requests all the time directly, and that's just normal.
Well, thanks for taking my direct request.
It was actually your colleague woke me up the other night at 2 a.m.
She's like, hey,
excuse me.
Shannon sent you an email.
Reaching out. Yeah.
But you see, I've heard stories. They're not big stories.
Tell me.
Of famous people who are like, oh, I can't sign that brand of baseball card or something weird like that.
So tied to things.
That exists. Sometimes I'll go to a bookstore and I'll do an event, and then they're like, okay, would you sign stock? And I'm like, the fact that you're asking me that question means someone said no.
Oh.
Right. Like who doesn't sign books? Like, would you sign your paperbacks? Because some authors only sign hardbacks. They only sign their most current book. I know. I'm like, you're an author. This is what you do. Sign the damn book. It's like, how do you say no to that?
Yeah.
I would just, if I had any talent at all in any area, like I would just be so stoked other people were excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I, part of me would want to be a diva and be like, oh, I'm sorry.
My hand is so tired.
You're going to have to go through it. But in all reality, I'm not going to be, because I'm just going to be giddy over the fact that somebody
about what you've created. Yeah.
Wants to spend time with me. Mm-hmm. That's not my husband. Or my mom. Yeah.
Literary fame is a very specific type of fame in that, for the most part, it's on your own terms, which is great because, like, I have a couple of book festivals coming up, one in Austin, one in Miami, and there people, they wait in line, they take photos with you. It's really cool. But then we can go home and there's no paparazzi and no one cares. But you also have moments that remind you that you're wildly unfamous still. I did an event in Seattle. It was a fundraiser, and they had authors. It was a big gala, and so they had like one or two authors at every table, and they had a big speaker, and they had all of our books on the table, and they were all signed. And it was one of those things where, they look under your placemat or something like that, and if you have the little star or whatever, you get all the signed books. And the people at our table, no one wanted our books.
Oh no! What?
Yeah, and it was the year Sherman Alexie won the National Book Awards. His book's there, and he's like, he got into some trouble later, but it was all these. He was at the time was like one of the most famous authors in the country, and the people who bought the table, it was like a financial firm that just, as part of their donation, bought a table, sent some employees. Their employees don't read. As soon as I sat down, I'm like, what do you like to read? And they're like, we don't read. I'm like, don't you read anything? Like, maybe golf.
What are you doing here?
Golf magazines, sailing magazines, and
comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at Sherman. We both looked at each other like, this is going to be
not our
painful.
Crowd. Yeah.
And so you have those moments where people are just like, you can sell like a zillion books, and they're still like,
not interested.
What are books? Yeah. So
it's a good feeling.
Yeah. You meet the people that they say, like at a party, like, I haven't read a book since high school. And they say that like they're bragging.
Like a badge of honor.
Yeah. And I'm like, you don't realize how that's being perceived.
Right.
like even people who aren't avid readers look at people like that and go,
you're like, that's not a good look.
To share.
Yeah. It's
like, you should at least read a book about your profession to try and be better at what you do.
Yeah. Being unlearned is not like a badge of honor.
Don't be that. Don't be like that.
Yeah. I mean, and granted, I'm a self-taught writer, so I don't have a degree in English or creative writing or anything like that. But I still read books.
Right.
I read all kinds of books.
Speaking of books, our local bookstore, Cassiopeia, because we'll have an announcement here as we're wrapping up the podcast.
You're doing that announcement, right?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
I should add, since we're talking about bookstores.
Yes.
I went to Book Expo a couple of years ago. It's the largest book thing in the U.S. It's in New York, and they put out a newspaper for the festival every year, and it has factoids and stuff. And it had a list of the top 10 states that had the highest number of bookstores per capita.
Ooh.
Montana was number 1.
Really?
So we have more bookstores per capita than any other state in the country.
Wow.
That's
That is a badge
amazing.
of honor. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I would not have guessed that.
One of the things that we have had, like media in or writers that are in, people who are writers for a living, they get giddy over the fact that we still have a local bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a great local bookstore.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a Barnes & Noble, but Cassiopeia is doing a wonderful job.
Anytime I go to a bookstore where the people are like, you need to read this author, and this is the kind of thing they write, and this is like they can pick out a book on a shelf in their entire store and know about the book. I can only do that at my house, like
Right.
on my bookshelf of the things I've bought and read.
Of the ones you've
oh, this is a good one. They can do it for the whole store.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that just is
Impressive.
amazing to me.
Yeah, a good indie bookstore is amazing. There is, I mean, what a good indie bookstore will do is they know their clientele, they know their customers, and then when they get these catalogs of books that they have to order, they will order books specifically for individual people. So when they come in, they're like, reach behind the counter and say, okay, I have a
I got
perfect
this
book for
for
you.
you.
I ordered this. You liked this book. I think you'll like this one. Here you go.
Wow.
And they don't have to buy it. You know, they don't want it to go on the shelf. But
Yeah.
good bookstores do that, and you don't get that from Amazon.
No.
I'm also going to plug, not necessarily for our travelers, because I can't imagine you'd check a book out and then return it in the time you're on vacation. But our public library is pretty amazing as
It
well.
is.
Yeah, our public library is great, and it's wildly underfunded. So,
Write some checks.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, of all the major communities in Montana, we spend the least amount on our public library. I mean, it's not even close. Like
Oh, wow.
if there was a top 10 list, there would be 5 cities and then blanks, and we would be number 11.
Wow.
Like we spend a ridiculously low amount on our public library. And I've, you know, every once, if you want to, go to a commission meeting sometimes when they talk about the library, and it's like, it's an afterthought. So
Thanks for the education on that. Because
Yes,
I was
I
just at
did
a
not
meeting with
realize that.
Susie McIntyre, and I think the world of her.
Susie's amazing, but she's, you know, every community has this battle between, like, do we want educational
Police.
materials or do we want, more jail cells?
Right.
And there's a correlation between the
Sure.
two.
Huge
A
correlation.
huge correlation.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's a great idea for a book.
Yeah, there you go. And then it can get banned because it'll be controversial.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard comparing, police services and fire departments to
Yeah. Well, I think
everybody's underfunded, but
Right.
on the average, Great Falls, we have some work to do there.
and we'll keep working on
Yes.
that. But the
And-
library is pretty good.
It is. And there are events, whether you don't necessarily have to check out a book while you're visiting, but there are events that our
Yes.
public library does that visitors can.
Well,
be part
and the
of.
really cool thing, I don't know if it's public, and maybe Susie will call me later and be like, why are you doing that? But they're instrumental in bringing back Shakespeare in the Park for us as a community.
Good.
That's awesome.
Good.
Which, Shakespeare was kind of a big writer back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh, Bill Shakespeare. Yeah.
And then a lot of stuff then turned into plays. People watch that. And then some of them even turned into movies. Like, he's had a pretty good career. I'd say whatever. That's right. Isn't that the artist that William Shakespeare was the pen name? And am I making this up?
Oh.
I think the idea is that Shakespeare was actually a bunch of people.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Some stuff that I
mean,
catch in passing.
There was a real Shakespeare, but there were probably a bunch of collaborators that
aha.
never got the spotlight.
Intriguing.
So thanks to them.
Yeah.
But back to Cassiopeia.
Yes.
Been fantastic. They're featured in our Montana Base Camp Guide as places to get local good products because there are tons of local writers,
Yes.
Montana writers, and we love to showcase that because why wouldn't you want to take a piece of Jamie home with you
Right.
from his home?
Yes.
Cassiopeia is great because they have guidebooks and trail books and hiking books and books on wildflowers and birds and stuff like that. So if you were here for any kind of recreational outdoors reason, they've got maps, they got everything.
Yeah. And you get to come home and you do events at Cassiopeia where you read.
Lucky for that.
Yeah.
What is that like, coming home and doing an event at Cassiopeia?
It's the best because I get to, I can just go home and sleep
in your own bed.
Yeah. But it's people, friends are there. It's families there. It's the best.
Is your spiel different at home versus at other places?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to talk about more personal things because more people there know me personally. And I'm really off the radar from my publicist. So I can say whatever. It's never going to get back to
them. Your publicist isn't flying in for that event.
Yeah. If I'm doing something in New York City and they're there with me, then I'm, they're
monitoring.
Yeah. They're just waiting just to make sure I don't say something that's going to be burn the world down on social media or something like that.
Ruin everyone's life.
Right.
I was thinking too, so I have a question. We've mentioned numerous times you're a New York Times bestseller, but you have been awarded many other awards. Sure. Are there ones that mean the most to you, or that you think are, you hear New York Times bestseller a lot, but that are other awards you've received that are less, undervalued compared to that title?
And is there an actual award? Like, it goes on your shelf. Maybe the prettiest one.
The whole New York Times bestselling thing, it's a love-hate thing.
Sure.
Because it's a curated list. So it's based on sales, and also they have their finger on the scale. And no one knows their exact formula. Yeah. But that's kind of the high water mark. So we have to live by their rules. And anytime I make the list, that's it. I'm happy. I think my publisher's more happy because they just...
They get something from that.
Yeah, I'm a horse that they're betting on. And that means they can, they're going to win.
Yeah.
I won an Asian American Award for literature for my first book. I'm hoping this new book will be considered for that. There's a couple other awards that they're nice. I do, have the awards. They send you something. I don't really
physical award.
Yeah, I don't put them on my wall or anything. They're just kind of in a closet. I don't know. I don't need to look at my awards and
maybe they're not pretty enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a difference between the wooden plaque with the metal imprint. We've gotten some really cool sponsor thank yous, which are completely not the same. I get that. That's people are talk about their kids and they're like, oh yeah, I have a dog. But there's been some creative effort in putting forward in some of the thank yous, of which we've put on display because they're locally made and they're really neat, but we don't put up the plaques that just have metal on them.
Yeah.
FYI.
It's a more
future people.
It's a more interesting discussion piece if it's an ironically repurposed bowling trophy or something like that. Than a fancy,
that's funny.
Engraved piece of crystal or something like that.
Yeah.
What Simon & Schuster does is they send their authors who make the bestseller list. It's a framed cover and then a framed the list with the book highlighted.
Oh,
so it's
that's
kind
neat.
of like if you it's
gold record.
It's a gold record equivalent, and so that I have in my office.
That's neat. Yeah.
Mainly because I just had a blank
wall.
I had this space where it would fit
the madness
perfectly.
wall. It's not on the madness wall.
Yeah. Well, what happened is I do so many Zooms now that I needed
a good backdrop.
I needed a good backdrop.
Yeah.
So on a wall that was just messy, I put stuff so it
Yeah.
looks like I'm a responsible human that wears pants on a regular basis.
Nice.
Even though you won't see that on Zoom.
Nope.
Right.
Got to give off that perception.
But that's kind of a cool thing. It's the gold record equivalent, and that's nice.
That is cool.
But for the most part, I don't. It's like I just like writing. Everything else is secondary.
We have not even in the same vein, but we have the hand stamped wallpaper that is currently in the C.M. Russell house after they did the historic remodel. We have the two pieces, a piece of each of the types of wallpaper that are in that house.
Here or in your
yes.
house?
No, here.
Oh.
And
in this building?
Yes. in this building.
I've never seen that.
I know,
Have I?
and I want to do like a creative
Yeah, you should.
display because we've also got a cardboard cutout of Charlie. Like I want to. I mean, it's not wallpaper isn't something you would normally do, but it is such an interesting piece to be able to talk about. Like, do a wall with this
With that.
wallpaper.
Yeah, we need to.
And I know where I can get some more. This is just a small piece. Like it would go in a picture frame and you'd hang it up.
Yeah.
But it is just a really neat thing to have, and I want to be able to utilize it some way. And it's like you build it up, and you're like, I got to do something really cool with this, and every idea you have is stupid. Well, I'm gonna go get a frame from Hobby Lobby,
right? Yeah,
put it in there. Or
this doesn't seem like enough.
It's a piece of history. It's really it's important. My third book, Love and Other Consolation Prizes, much of it's set in a famous brothel in Seattle. The building is now a men's rescue mission, so it's been repurposed.
Yeah,
and the basement is a free dental clinic, and they left. There was hand painted wallpaper from the 20s.
Wow.
And one wall still has it. They
it
cool. Looks like wallpaper you would find in a brothel in the 20s. It's like red and velvety and
perfect.
Interesting.
But it's so cool to see it.
Yeah.
And if those walls could talk.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But they do in your book.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
There you go. That's where they come to life.
Yeah.
Yes. Jamie, anything else? We could talk a long time. We could talk about a lot of things. Is there anything you?
No, I've got nothing.
She was reaching for an index card, and I was like, is there a
I'm just
secret
fidgeting.
question on there?
Please don't.
Anything else
Pay
you
no
want
attention
people
to me.
to know?
Anything else people know? You can find me.
Your address for backyard barbecues.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm in the Fox Farm area.
Yes.
Look for the red door. I have had people knock on my door and want me to sign books. Yeah, that's okay.
That's got to be unnerving.
But I've also had drunk people knock on my door at 2 a.m. accidentally, and then ask for a ride to the gas station. So
Which question do you like better? Yeah. Which feels less intrusive.
Yeah, as long as it's during normal business hours.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean it's only happened twice.
Well, still, you're just one step away from misery happening.
Yeah, right.
At your home. Hopefully your wife comes home.
Yeah.
Saves you.
Where can people find you, your things, your books, your socials, all of that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Jamie Ford and on Twitter at Jamie Ford, on Facebook, the normal places. Find my books anywhere you buy books. I think it was Neil Gaiman who said there's no wrong way to buy books, but the best way is through an independent bookstore. And ours is Cassiopeia here in town. Whether you're a resident or a visitor, it's the place to go.
Really easy to find. Yeah. Now, did I hear maybe Shannon was telling me a lie, but you voiced part of the audio book for this? No.
I didn't tell you that.
Okay. That's why I said maybe. Like I
said there is an audiobook.
Yeah, and I remember that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
If I said that, I didn't.
Okay.
I read the author's note. I read the acknowledgement. So I end up reading.
So he's there.
Okay.
12 pages or something. But the cool thing about the audiobook for the Many Daughters of Afong Moy is it's an ensemble. So they have 7 voice actresses. So every character has a different voice.
Were you part of that selection process for the voices?
Generally what happens is they will send. They're like, okay, this is who we think we're casting for this, and I think my second book was the only one where I was like, I really don't like that one, and they switch. But for the most part, these are all professional actors, and doing audiobooks is kind of a side hustle. There's a couple of people that are just exclusively do audiobooks because they're just wildly talented performers, and a couple of them are in the book.
But when you're creating these characters, I think. And we hear it time and time again. I read this book, and then they turned it into a movie, and
it's not at all who
and
I
these aren't the
envisioned.
people I thought they were.
Yeah.
But when you're creating those characters, you have to have an image of what they sound like and what they look like, and so that's got to be a little disruptive when they actually come to life, and you're like, "Ooh,
that's not what I pictured." Yeah,
these are not my people.
Yeah, but I don't listen to my audiobooks.
Okay.
For this one, I skimmed through it just so I could hear each distinct voice, and then I was like, okay, that's cool, that's working, I like this. And it's a big deal when a publisher does an ensemble because it's really expensive, and it's kind of a sign that they believe in it. That they believe in it, and so that was, it was. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I've had lots of emails and things from people who have and really enjoyed it.
They really are betting on this horse,
They're betting on that horse. Yeah.
which you can do every summer in Great Falls at the horse racing.
Yes, there you go.
Speaking of the book club I'm in the summer, we try to have a book that's kind of a field trip. And so,
Ooh, fun.
yeah, we read a book called Lean on Pete by Willie Vlotten. He's an Oregon author, but the whole book is set in and around horse racing. So we had our meeting at the track.
Was that
So-
the
Well,
first
that's
time you'd been to
appropriate.
horse racing?
What's that?
Was it the first time you'd been to horse racing?
Oh no, I'd been to the track in Seattle before, but and one of the guys in the club is I guess it's the jockey club. That's kind of the boosters for
Okay.
horse racing
Yep.
in Great Falls.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great for all of us to meet there. We can eat nachos and drink beer and talk about the book and then lose money
Yeah.
$2 at a time.
There you go.
It was a sad thing that I had to admit, but my first time going to horse racing was this summer, and I bet on the ponies, and I was successful. And I told my husband, I'm pulling the mortgage on the house. I'm betting the house on this, doing that good.
Wow.
You know, it's fun when you bet $2 to $5 or
It's
10.
totally
You're
fun.
not losing
or
a lot.
you go to the edge and you're like, I'm gonna do $20 on
Yeah.
this, and then you win, and you're like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
I can do this professionally.
Yeah, right.
For a few races every summer in Great Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great way to spend a summer afternoon, even if you're not there for the whole day. Just
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
really fun, and just listening to people like the seasoned horse people tell you the stories of like you always bet on the gray horse, and you always, this is what you're looking for, and I'm like, okay, like, and then they work, like those tips work.
everyone has a different thing. I bet on the jockeys. So there'll be a certain jockey, and I will bet on that jockey all day.
That seems smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up with a kid that is the trainer and owner of some of the racehorses.
Okay.
So I always bet on his horses, and they've done very well. So thank you, Buckshot.
Well, that works out. Yeah.
So tune back for our racing tips.
Yes, exactly. Next summer, we'll talk about that.
Next episode.
Yes. Okay, so we want to wrap up. We do have we have a book from Cassiopeia,
Cool.
your newest release that we will be giving away. Yes, Jamie, it will be a personalized, signed copy, part of a giveaway that we're doing.
And not just his signature. It's going to be like you're going to know it comes from this episode.
Yes.
Because it has horse racing tips in it.
Yes.
Jamie's personal horse racing
and my
tips.
address.
It'll be on page 220
Yes.
in the margins.
So look for that. Yes. But for your chance to win a giveaway here in honor of our 100th episode.
100 of these bad boys.
Yes. What we want you to do, you have to have made it to this point in the episode to start with.
This is a bad deal.
So share. So this will be a post that exists on social media. Share our post, tag Visit Great Falls, and you'll be entered for your chance to win.
Yeah. You'll have had to have listened to this episode.
Yes.
Which, congratulations.
You made it.
You've done it.
Yes. We
Second,
thank you.
you're going to have to share the podcast.
The podcast post. Yes.
You're going to tag Visit Great Falls. So it doesn't matter what platform you
Nope.
do.
Any of our social. So we'll say Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can actually share on YouTube.
You
but
can
maybe
comment.
You
but-
can do weird
So
things.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah.
So I find the episode from our channel. I share it and I tag us. And then I have a chance to win the 100th episode signed
Personalized book.
Jamie Ford book.
Yes.
Well, that seems like a pretty generous
Yeah.
thing for us to do.
Sure.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah.
Thanks for making dreams come true.
Yes. So look for that.
Well, it's been a blast having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And to help us celebrate 100 episodes.
That's a milestone. That's a big deal.
It is.
It is. We started this. We had no idea what we were doing. We have a little bit better of an idea what we're doing now, but
I'm new and I'm still trying to figure out what we're doing. So
That's the beginning of every great success story.
I'm
is
just
let's hope.
we didn't know what we were doing,
Yeah.
and then now we're on top of Mount Everest. Yeah.
I'm just the on-air talent. Shannon is actually the person who knows everything. So there's
no pressure there. That's not true. Not true.
So we look forward to stalking you later. Having you
Excellent.
back. Having you
Show
back.
Rebecca will be showing up in your house next.
Changing my locks today.
That's not a bad
Yeah,
idea.
probably smart.
And thank you for being a resident of Great Falls.
Yes.
And thanks for having me. Great Falls is awesome. I don't know. It's funny. People, when I travel, people often like, "Oh, do you live in Bozeman or Missoula?" And I'm like, "No, I live in Great Falls." And I prefer Great Falls. But those are wonderful communities.
Yeah.
But as far as accessibility to all the cool things in the state, this is the best place to be.
Because at this point, basking in your glory, you could live anywhere you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when my first book took off, I'd run into people at like Albertsons, and they're like, "You're still here?" Like,
You didn't leave us.
What happened?
Yeah, like a van shows up and it's Salman Rushdie. He's like, "Get in, we're moving to Brooklyn." I wouldn't live in Brooklyn at gunpoint.
Yeah.
It's not where
It's not your style.
It's not my style.
Yeah.
I'm a West Coast kid, and I don't want to live in a community with like 10 million people.
Where you have to take a car for 3 blocks.
Yeah. They're great places to visit, but I get so much more done here. It's so much more relaxing. It's better for your physical and mental health. It's just a better place to live.
Well, and you've got that book club that anchors you to remind you you're not really an author.
Yeah. I don't really care what you think. Yeah.
People ask, they're like, do you guys ever read your books? And I'm like, that would be like us comparing photos of our wives naked. Nothing good will come of that.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Yeah.
too personal.
Yeah. Good call with that. Yeah. Well, we're proud to call you ours here in Great Falls.
Proud to be here.
And
we're-
even if you leave, we're still going
we're
to call
still
you
claiming
ours.
you. Yes. And congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
success and for sharing
Honestly,
these
yeah.
for sharing these really interesting, impactful, thought-provoking stories with the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So until we see your bright, smiling, happy face here in Great Falls, we hope you are creating amazing memories with your friends and family wherever you are. We'll see you soon.
We're No Damn Experts is the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing damn town. Damn, that felt good.